Welcome to our class Deep Insights. So today we are discussing about maxims of teaching. Every teacher wants to make maximum involvement and participation of the learners in the learning process. He sets the classroom in such a way so that it becomes attractive for them. He uses general rule or formula and applies it to particular example in order to make teaching learning process easy and up to the understandable level of students. These settled principles, tenets, working rules or general truths through which teaching becomes interesting, easy and effective are called the maxims of teaching. The maxims of teaching the general truth ଉପରେ based ଆଉ general rule ଉପରେ based rules କୁ maxims of teaching ବୋଲିକା କୁହାଯାଏ. They have universal significance. Every person who is expected to enter into the teaching profession have to familiarize himself with the maxims of teaching. Their knowledge helps him to proceed systematically. The different maxims of teachings are briefly explained below. ତାହେଲେ ତଳେ different maxims of teaching explain କରାଯାଇଛି. The teacher should always proceed keeping them in view. ତାହେଲେ ଏ ସବୁକୁ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରିକି teaching process ଟା ହେବ ବୋଲିକା କୁହାଯାଇଛି. ତ from known to unknown. When a child enters into school, he or she possesses some knowledge and it is the duty of teacher to enlarge his previous knowledge. Whatever he possesses should be linked with the new knowledge. Whatever he possesses should be linked with the new knowledge. If we link new knowledge with the old knowledge, our teaching becomes clearer and more definite. This maxims facilitates the learning process and economies the efforts of the teacher and the taught. ତାହେଲେ ସେ କ'ଣ କହୁଛି ଯେ କି from known to unknown. ତାହେଲେ ଆମେ ଜ୍ଞାତରୁ ଅଜ୍ଞାତକୁ ଯିବା, ଯୋଉଟା ହଉଛି maxims of teaching ର first principle. ତ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ପିଲାଟି ଶ୍ରେଣୀ ଗୃହକୁ ଯାଏ, ତାର ପ୍ରିଭିୟସ୍ ନଲେଜରୁ ହିଁ ନ୍ୟୁ ନଲେଜ ଯଦି ଲିଙ୍କ କରିଦିଆଯାଏ ତାହେଲେ ସେଟା ବହୁତ ଇଫେକ୍ଟିଭ ହେଇଥାଏ ବୋଲିକା କୁହାଯାଇଛି. So for example, is teaching English to the children and he is to teach the word water. He reminds them the Kashmiri word ab, which they already know, and then tells them that is English we say water. ମନେକର water କଥା ଯଦି ପଡ଼ିଛି, water ଟା ହଉଛି ତାର new knowledge. ତ ପୁରୁଣାରେ ଆମେ water ମାନେ ତ ପାଣି ଜାଣିଛେ, ତ ପାଣିକୁ ଇଂଲିଶରେ water ବୋଲିକା କୁହାଯାଏ. ତ ଏଠି କାଶ୍ମୀରୀ କଥା କହିଛି, ମାନେ କାଶ୍ମୀରରେ ତାକୁ କୁହନ୍ତି ଆବ୍ ବୋଲିକା କୁହନ୍ତି. ତ ଆବ୍ ର ଇଂଲିଶ ୱାର୍ଡ ଟା ହଉଛି water. This way of teaching helps the learner to understand things fully. This way the teaching becomes definite, clearer and more fruitful. ତାହେଲେ ଏଇ ପ୍ରୋସେସରେ ଯଦି ପଢ଼ାଯାଏ ତାହେଲେ ଏଇଟା ବହୁତ କ୍ଲିଅର ଆଉ ଫ୍ରୁଟଫୁଲ ହୋଇଥାଏ ବୋଲିକା କୁହାଯାଇଛି. ତ ଫ୍ରମ୍ ସିମ୍ପଲ ଟୁ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ, ତାହେଲେ ସରଳରୁ ଜଟିଳକୁ. The main object of teaching is to teacher and the learner's objective is to learn something. In this process of teaching and learning, simple or easy things should be first presented to the students and gradually he should proceed towards complex or difficult things. ତାହେଲେ ସରଳରୁ ଆମେ ଜଟିଳକୁ ଯିବା. ଫାଷ୍ଟ ସହଜ ଯୋଉଟା ସେଟା ସଲ୍ଭ କରିବା, ଦେନ୍ ତାପରେ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟିଜକୁ ଗଲେ ଆମେ ସେଇ ସିମ୍ପଲରୁ ହିଁ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସକୁ ଆମେ ଗତି କରିଥାଉ. The presentation of simple materials makes the learners interested, confident and feel encouraged as they will show interest towards the simple materials. They becomes respective to the complex matter. On the other hand, if complex matter is presented first, the learner become upset। ତାହେଲେ ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ କଠିନ ଜଟିଳ ଯଦି ସମସ୍ୟା ଆସିଯାଏ ତ ତାକୁ ସେ ସମସ୍ୟାର ସମାଧାନ ଖୋଜି ପାଇପାରୁନା, ତେଣୁକରି ସରଳରୁ ହିଁ ଜଟିଳକୁ ଗତି କରିବା ଠିକ ହେବ। feel bored and finds himself in a challenging situation। ତାହେଲେ ତାକୁ ଏଇଟା ବହୁତ କଠିନ ହେଇଯିବ, ସେ ମନ ଦୁଃଖ କରିବ ଆଉ ସେ ତାକୁ ସଲ୍ଭ କରିବାକୁ ଏବୁଲ ହେବନି। ତ ସିମ୍ପଲ ଆଗ ତାର ଦେନ୍ ହଉଛି କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ। ମାନେ ଫର ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଇନ୍ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ वी first present the idea of plus minus into and then division। when the child gets admitted to ninth and 10th class, we introduce algebra, sorts in trigonometry, geometry, etc. As he proceeds further, he becomes familiar with the complex material like matrix, integration, differentiation, etc. In this way, a learner shows interest by proceeding from simple mathematics to complex one। ତାହେଲେ simple ଫାଷ୍ଟ ମିଶାଣ ଫେଡ଼ାଣ ହରଣ ଗୁଣ ଜାଣିବ, ଦେନ୍ ଆଲଜେବ୍ରା ଜାଣିବ, ଜୋମେଟ୍ରି ଜାଣିବ, ଟ୍ରିଗୋନୋମେଟ୍ରି ଜାଣିବ, ଏସବୁ ଜାଣିବ କ୍ଲାସ୍ 9 10ରେ। ତ ବେସିକ୍ରେ ରହୁଛି ପ୍ଲସ୍ ମାଇନସ୍, ଗୁଣନ ଆଉ ହରଣ ଏସବୁ ରହୁଛି। But if we reverse the situation, he will find himself in a challenging situation। ଯଦି ଆମେ ତାକୁ ଆଲଜେବ୍ରାରୁ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ କରିବା, ସେ ମୋଟରୁ ପ୍ଲସ୍ ମାଇନସ୍ ଜାଣିନି କି ମିଶାଣ ଫେଡ଼ାଣ ଗୁଣନ ଜାଣିନି, ତାକୁ ତ୍ରିକୋଣମିତି ପଢ଼ାଯାଏ ତ ସେ ବୁଝିପାରିବ ନାହିଁ, ତାହେଲେ ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସିଚୁଏସନ୍ ହେଇଯିବ। Simplicity or complexity of the subject matter should be determined according to the viewpoint of the learner। ତ ଲର୍ଣ୍ଣର ପଏଣ୍ଟ ଅଫ ଭ୍ୟୁରୁ ହିଁ ଚିନ୍ତା କଲେ ତା ପାଇଁ କୋଉଟା ସହଜ ହବ, ସିମ୍ପଲ ରୁ କେମିତି କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ କୁ ଯିବ ସେ କଥା ଆମେ ଚିନ୍ତା କରିପାରିବା। ଇଟ୍ ମେକ୍ସ ଲର୍ଣ୍ଣିଂ convenient and interesting for the students। ତାହେଲେ ସିମ୍ପଲ ରୁ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ଗଲେ ସେଟା ବହୁତ ଇଣ୍ଟରେଷ୍ଟିଂ ହେଇଥାଏ ବୋଲିକା କୁହାଯାଇଛି। ଫ୍ରମ୍ concrete to abstract, concrete things are solid things and they can be visualized, but abstract things are only imaginative things the child understand more easily when taught through their senses and never forget that material। On the other hand, if abstract things or ideas are presented, they forget it soon। As Froebel said, our lessons ought to start in the concrete and end in the abstract। For example, when we teach the solar system, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ solar system ପଢ଼େଇବା, we first visualize the sun। solar system ପଢ଼ିବା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଆମେ ଆଗ sun କୁ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟଙ୍କୁ ଦେଖେଇବା through our senses and give the concept of 8 planets। ଆଗ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟଙ୍କୁ ଦର୍ଶେଇବା, ତାପରେ 8 planets, galaxies ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ସବୁ ଦର୍ଶେଇବା। Through this process, the learners understand the materials more easily। Some power of imagination also develops in them। But if we reverse the situation, ଆଗ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଯଦି ରିଭର୍ସ କରିଦେବା ସିଚୁଏସନକୁ, ତାହେଲେ ସୋଲାର ସିଷ୍ଟମ ବୋଲିକା ଏମିତି ହ୍ୱାଟ ଇଜ ସୋଲାର ସିଷ୍ଟମ ଯଦି ପଚାରିଦେବା, ତାହେଲେ ସିଏ କଷ୍ଟ ହେଇଯିବ। ତ ଆଗ ଜାଣିଥିବା କଥାରୁ ହିଁ ଅଜାଣତକୁ ଯିବା। Another example, when we teach counting to the students, we should first take the help of concrete objects like beds, stones, etc. and then proceed to digits and numbers। ତାହେଲେ ଆମେ କନକ୍ରିଟ ମାନେ ଯୋଉ ଜିନିଷ ଗୁଡା ଦେଖା ଯାଉଥିବା ସେମ୍ ଆଗ ସେଥିରୁ ତା ଦେହରେ ଆମେ ଆବଷ୍ଟ୍ରାକ୍ଟ କୁ ଯିବା ବୋଲିକା କୁହାଯାଇଛି। From analysis to synthesis, when we divide a thing into easy parts or separate elements in order to understand it easily is called analysis। ତାହେଲେ analysis କାହାକୁ କୁହାଯାଏ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷକୁ ଡିଭାଇଡ କରିଥାଉ ବା ଗୋଟେ କନସେପ୍ଟ କୁ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ଚିନ୍ତା କରି ଦିଆଯାଏ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ପାର୍ଟ ପାର୍ଟ କରିଥାଉ ହୋଲ ଟୁ ପାର୍ଟ କୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯାଇଥାଉ ସେତେବେଳେ ହିଁ ତାକୁ କୁହାଯାଏ analysis। It is the process which helps in understanding the hidden elements of a thing। ତାହେଲେ କଣ ତା ଦେହରେ ସବୁ ଉପାଦାନ ଲୁଚି ରହିଛି ସେ ସବୁ ଜଣା ପଡେ। or the cause of some incident, ତାହେଲେ ଇନସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ର କାରଣ ବି ଜଣା ପଡେ, behavior। For instance, in order to tell about the structure or functions of heart, the parts of the heart are shown separately and knowledge of every part is given after it। the students are made to understand the structure or system of working of the heart ताले यदि विज्ञान कथा चिंता करा जाए ताले आग हार्ट बा हृत्पिंड कथा कुआ जाए देन तार पार्ट्स गुड़ाक चिन्हि दिया जाए सेही हार्ट रु तार विभिन्न प्रकार पार्ट कथा हमें चिंता करथाउ से होची एनालिसिस करिबा तापर आसुची सिंथेसिस सिंथेसिस इज जस्ट ऑपोजिट ऑफ एनालिसिस ताले सिंथेसिस होची कोन एनालिसिस रो ऑपोजिट ऑल पार्ट्स आर shown as a whole. The process of analysis is easier than synthesis for understanding a thing. This process develops the analytical power of the students. It is the best method of starting the teaching process. ताले एटा होची गोटे बेस्ट मेथड सिंथेसिस टा. For example, while teaching digestive system, we should first analyze the different parts of digestive system. ताले पार्ट रो तळे हम होल को जाई ताको होची सिंथेसिस बोलिका कुआ जाए. View of it. Hence, a good teacher always proceeds from analysis to synthesis. ताले एनालिसिस रो हमें सिंथेसिस को जाई थाउ गोटे गुड टीचर से ही करिता त हमकु से स्टेप फॉलो करिवार अछि. देन फ्रॉम पर्टिकुलर टू जनरल तार पर्टिकुलर टू जनरल होची सेही सेम कथा. A teacher should always proceed from particular to general statements, general facts, principles. माने जतबे एग्जांपल लो हमें जाई था गोटे प्रिंसिपल जनरल प्रिंसिपल को जाई था ताको होची पर्टिकुलर स्पेसिफिक केसेस रो हमें जनरल केसेस को जाई था जतबे सेटा को होची पर्टिकुलर टू जनरल बोलिका कुआ जाउची. जनरल फैक्ट्स प्रिंसिपल्स एंड आइडियाज आर डिफिकल्ट टू अंडरस्टैंड. तले कोन होय ना जनरल फैक्ट प्रिंसिपल ए सब को अंडरस्टैंड करिया को हमकु ठीक है डिफिकल्ट होता है किंतु जतबे पर्टिकुलर बा स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल नु हमें जनरल प्रिंसिपल को जाई था सेतबे एटा अंडरस्टैंडेबल होता है. तो कॉन्सेप्ट अधिका बुझी हो जाए कारण हमें एग्जांपल थ्रू हम डे टू डे लाइफ से लिंक कर दी गले जनरल लॉज गुड़ा जल्दी मन रही जाई थाए. तापरे suppose the teacher is teaching continuously tense while teaching English. जतबे इंग्लिश पढ़ाउची तो टेंस कंटीन्यूअसली पढ़ाउचंदी. He should first of all give few examples and then on the basis of those make them generalize that this tense is used to denote an action that is going on at the time of speaking. ताले आगो से कौन करिवे ना टाइम टाकू आगो एग्जांपल थ्रू रे बुझाइबे तापर टेंस रो कांसेप्ट कहिबे. तो ताकू ही कहते पर्टिकुलर टू जनरल प्रिंसिपल को हमें गति करथाउ फ्रॉम एम्पिरिकल टू रैशनल. So empirical knowledge is that which is based on observation and past and experience about which no reasoning is needed at all. It is concrete, particular and simple. We can feel and experience it. On the other hand, rational knowledge is based upon arguments and explanations. For example, suppose the students are to be taught that water boils on heating. They should first be made to heat the water and see it boiling. Then the teacher should explain that when water is heated, the molecules gain kinetic energy and there is thermal agitation of the molecules which make the water boil. This maxims is an extension of some of the previous maxims, namely proceed from simple to complex, proceed from concrete to abstract, from particular to general. ये सब प्रोसेस को ही से फॉलो करी थाए कि empirical to rational. From induction to deduction, the process of deriving general laws, rules or formula from particular example is called induction. ताले example हमें तबले general principle को जाई थाउ ताकू कुआ जाए induction. In it, if a statement is true in a special situation, ताले गोटे special situation में जदी से statement टा true हैला, it will also be true in other similar situations. तो सब situation में सेटा true हबो बोलिका कुआ जायछि. एई बेले हमें induction करता. It means drawing a conclusion from set of examples. ताले example मानकर set रु हमें conclusion जतबे draw करथाउ ତାକୁ କୁହନ୍ତି induction. For example, when hydrogen reacts with the boron, it gives boron hydride. Potassium reacts hydrogen, it gives potassium hydride. We come to the conclusion that all elements when reacts with hydrogen, they form hydrates. While using the process in teaching, a teacher has to present particular examples or experiences and tell about similarity of their attributes. Deduction is just opposite of induction. তাহলে deduction হচ্ছে induction না opposite. In it we derive a certain particular conclusion. তাহলে conclusion টা particular general rule ହିଁ ଆମେ follow କରିଥାଉ. Or principles, for example, in language teaching, before giving the definition of noun. ତାହେଲେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ language teaching ଦେଇଥାଉ ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ noun or definition କହିଥାଉ. The students are acquainted with the examples of noun like man, chair, Delhi, etc. and they are led to general definition of noun. So a good teacher always proceeds from induction and finishes at deduction. From psychological to logical, modern education gives more emphasis on psychology of the child. ତାହେଲେ modern education କ'ଣ କରୁଛି କାହା ଉପରେ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦେଇଛି psychology of the child. Child psychology ଉପରେ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦେଇଛି. The child psychological development is of utmost important than any other things. The teacher while teaching should follow these maxims. From psychological to logical, psychological approach takes into consideration the people, his interest, abilities, aptitudes, development levels, needs and reactions. The teacher should keep in mind the psychological selection of the subject matter to be presented before the pupil's. Logical approach considers the arrangement of the chosen content into logical order and steps. It is child-centered maximum. For example, a teacher tells the story of a poem to students. Example କ'ଣ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ଶିକ୍ଷକ story ଗୋଟେ poem କହିଥାଏ student କୁ, when they are not interested in reading. With this, a teacher proceeds from psychological to logical consequence. From actual to representative, the first hand experiences make learning from vivid and efficient than to give them representative ones. A teacher, while selecting the content for representation, should make all efforts possible to present it. ताहले ये भी ones like pictures, models, etc. ତାହେଲେ ଆମେ କ'ଣ କରିଥାଉ ନା representative actual ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ concept ପଢା ଯାଉଛି ତ actual situation ରୁ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ representative situation କୁ ଯାଇଥାଉ ସେଇଟା ହିଁ ହେଉଛି best method. ତ ଯୋଉଥିରେ present actual situation କୁ ଯାଇ ମାନଙ୍କର study tour କଥା ଯଦି ପଡୁଛି ତ ଗୋଟେ concept ସେଇ syllabus ରେ ପଢା ହେଲା ତ ଯଦି ଆମେ ତାକୁ ନେଇକି ଦେଖେଇଦବା ସେ ପିଲାଟିକୁ ସେ ଜାଗାଟା ବା କୋଣାର୍କ ବିଷୟରେ ଯଦି ପଢା ହଉଛି ତ ସେଇଟା ବେଶୀ ଇଫେକ୍ଟିଭ ହବ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେ ତା ଆଖିରେ କୋଣାର୍କ ଦେଖିବ ଆଉ ତା କାରୁକାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ଦେଖିବ ତ ତାକୁ ଆଉ କିଛି ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହବ ନାହିଁ ସେ କନସେପ୍ଟ ବୁଝିପାରେ. କିନ୍ତୁ ଯଦି ସେ କୋଣାର୍କ ମନ୍ଦିରକୁ ଯାଇ ହେଉ ନାହିଁ ବା ଦୂର ଅଛି ତ ସେଥିଲାଗି କ'ଣ କରାଯିବ ନା ତାର ମଡେଲ ବା ତାର ପିକ୍ଚର୍ସ ମଡେଲ ଏସବୁ ଏକୁ କୁହନ୍ତି ରିପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେଟିଭ. କିନ୍ତୁ ଯଦି ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ରୁ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲ ସିଚୁଏସନ କୁ ଯଦି ତାକୁ ନିଆଯାଏ ତାହେଲେ ମାନେ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ବି ଦେଇଛି ଦେଖିଦବା. ତ ଫର ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଟୁ ଟିଚ୍ ଏବାଉଟ୍ ଗୋଲ୍ଡେନ ଟେମ୍ପଲ ଇନ୍ ଅମୃତସର, ତ ସେ ଅମୃତସରର ଗୋଲ୍ଡେନ ଟେମ୍ପଲ କଥା କହିଛି ଯୋଉଠିକି ଟିଚର ସୁଡ୍ ଟ୍ରାଏ ହିଜ୍ ବେଷ୍ଟ ଟୁ ଭିଜିଟ୍ ଦି ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲ ପ୍ଲେସ୍. ତ ଯଦି ନିହାତି ଦେଖିବା ଦରକାର ସେ ପ୍ଲେସ୍ କୁ ଯାଇ ଭିଜିଟ୍ କରିବା ଦରକାର and that learning will be more vivid and the pupils will retain it for a long time. ତାହେଲେ ଏଟା ବହୁତ ଅଧିକ ଦିନ ମନେ ରହିବ ଯଦି ସେ ଅମୃତସର ଯାଇକି ଦେଖିଲା ଗୋଲ୍ଡେନ ଟେମ୍ପଲ in spite of teaching through sketches, models or pictures. ତାକୁ ପିକ୍ଚର ଏସବୁ ଦେଖିବା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଯଦି ଦେଖାଯାଏ ଜୀବନ୍ତ ମଡେଲଟା ତାକୁ ଯଦି ନେଇକି ମଡେଲ ନ ଦେଖେଇ ଯଦି ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲ ସିଚୁଏସନ କୁ ନିଆଯାଏ ବା ଯୋଉଠି ଅମୃତସରକୁ ନେଇକି ଯଦି ଗୋଲ୍ଡେନ ଟେମ୍ପଲ ଦେଖେଇ ଦିଆଯାଏ ତାହେଲେ ସେଟା ବହୁତ ଇଫେକ୍ଟିଭ ହେବ. ରିପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟେଟିଭ forms should be used at the higher classes than than in lower classes. Representative ର କୋଉଠି use ହୁଏ ବେଶୀ higher classes ରେ use ହୁଏ lower class ବ୍ୟତୀତ lower classes ସେଥିଲାଗି study tour ପରିକା ବେଶୀ ରହିଥାଏ higher classes ରେ ଆମକୁ ତ model ଦେଖେଇଦେଲେ ଆମେ ବୁଝି ଯାଉଛେ from whole to parts. This maxims is the offshoot of Gestalt theory of learning whose main emphasis was to perceive things or objects as whole and not in the form of parts. Whole is more understandable, motivating, and effective than the parts. In teaching, the teacher should first give a sympathetic view of lesson and then analyze it into different parts. ତାହେଲେ ଯେତେବେଳେ whole part କୁ ଦିଆଯାଏ for example କ'ଣ ଦେଇଛି the teacher while teaching the pollination in plants he should first take the flower then analyze it into different parts. ଗୋଟେ ଫୁଲ ବିଷୟରେ ପଢଉଛନ୍ତି ତ ଫୁଲକୁ ଆଗ ଖଣ୍ଡ ଖଣ୍ଡ କରିଦେବେ ଆଗ ଫୁଲ ଦେଖିବେ ତାପରେ ତାକୁ ପାର୍ଟ ପାର୍ଟ କରିଦେବେ and give detailed information about each and every part like the sepals, petals and roscium, glacium, gynecium etc. In this way maximum learning is possible. It is actually the reverse of the maxims analysis to synthesis from definite to indefinite. The teacher should always start from definite because definiteness has its limited boundaries and jurisdiction than indefinite things. We always have confident on definite and tested things. We learn easily indefinite things on the basis of definite things. Hence, a teacher, while teaching any content, should first present definite things, ideas, then he can learn indefinite things easily. Definite rules of grammar help the learner to have good knowledge. Gradually, he can be taught about indefinite things. ये गला definite to indefinite. Core teaching skills. ତ ଆଜି ପାଇଁ ଏତିକି ଥିଲା. Thank you.